Prime Minister Scott Morrison has made an address at an International Women's Day breakfast this morning. Mr Morrison acknowledged further reform is needed to achieve full gender equality, but he insists his government is delivering practical outcomes for women.
We're getting things done for Australians, record levels of getting people into work, particularly women. I mean, today, the gender pay gap, still got a long way to go. It's the lowest level. Number of females sitting on boards of this government, it's at the highest level that we've seen. We've got 50% representation of women in the Senate. These are things that are real, they're practical, they're outcomes, and I'm focused on getting things.
Financial security is a key issue, with calls for the government to boost women's superannuation earnings. 32% of Australian women have no superannuation. Joining us now for more on this is Sharpe. She's the Assistant Federal Secretary at the Nurses Federation, one of the biggest unions in this country. Appreciate your time, Lorianne. We know women retire with significantly less superannuation than men. The average is, I think, just over $100,000. Yesterday, the Victorian government argued we should be amending sex discrimination laws to allow employers to pay women more super than men. Is that really a good idea? Wouldn't that move essentially make women more expensive to employ?
Yes, well, as you said, we are here on a delegation, the Australian Nursing and Midwifery Federation, the Australian Services Union and the SDA, representing some of the lowest paid workers in the country, predominantly in the care sector and the retail sector. We are advocating for an accumulation pathway to increase superannuation savings for women, because at the moment the prospects of retiring in poverty is very real. We've seen an increase to those women over the 55 age group retire in poverty. The trajectory is that we're going to see that increase over time unless some of the barriers that women face in contributing to superannuation are addressed. So we're here this week, we're meeting with many parliamentarians around some of the barriers that women face in retirement, and we're also advocating that the government commit to their promise that they took to the election last year on the legislative increase to 12% by 2025.
But again, do you have any fears that these sort of pushes could backfire, that we could see any amendments to those sex discrimination laws allowing employers to pay women more super than men end up being a sort of discouragement for employers to bring more women onto the team?
Well, it's difficult to see that happen, because what we saw in 2014 when the super guarantee was frozen, we would have actually seen it rise to 12% by now, and we've done some modelling on how that's affected some of our average members, and that equates in that time to a loss of just up to $7,000, and that doesn't take into consideration some of the compound interest and the amount that would increase for women in retirement. So we've brought members from all around the country to talk to politicians in these 2 days about the impact of that freeze, not freezing it to 12%, not increasing it to 12%. And we also know that with the wages stagnation, we've only seen an average increase of $1,000 over that 4 years, and impacted as well as with the super guarantee freeze of another $5,000 to $7,000. That's having real impacts on women in their retirement.
You mentioned the 12% figure. The Victorian government's proposing to increase that eventually to 15%. Do you back that plan? I mean, that's a huge jump from 9.5 to 15%.
Yeah, it sounds like a huge plan because it's been frozen for the last 5 years, but it is legislated, and the government did take it to the last election, and we hope we can trust them to keep that promise, because it is legislated to go up by 0.5% as of the 1st of July next year, and then slowly increments up until 2025 at 12%. And yes, we would certainly advocate for a further conversation and to have a pathway to 15%, because we know that women are retiring with 45% less savings in retirement than men, and that equates up to, as you said in the opening, $110,000 a year. So if we don't address the problem now, we're going to see more women retiring into poverty. It's going to increase the pressure on the aged care pension, and it really lowers the prospects for women having a dignified retirement.
One of the proposals is also to pay women superannuation while they're on maternity leave, and we're seeing warnings about that as well. Essentially, business groups saying that could depress wages. Surely your members would be balking at anything that would be seen to have a negative impact on wages.
Yeah, well, women shouldn't be penalised for taking time out of their careers to have a baby. I mean, of course superannuation should be paid on the Commonwealth parental scheme and on all parental leave. I mean, we do see in a number of EBAs across the country where nurses and midwives get paid superannuation on their maternity leave. It also happens in some of the retail sectors as well, so it can happen. The sky hasn't fallen in. I think women shouldn't be penalised for taking time off from their work to care for the community, and currently there's just too many barriers that exist, so we do need to address that. We also need to address the 450 cap which exists. Basically that's where a worker, usually in a very low paid job and it has a casual position, works across multiple employers. Now if they earn under $450 a month, there's no obligation for the employer to pay superannuation on that amount. Aged care workers, it is very common for them to work casual part-time across many employers. That means that they can potentially be on $30,000 or $40,000 a year and have no superannuation balance whatsoever because they don't earn over $450 with one employer.
Well, worth considering on a day that Parliament is celebrating International Women's Day, a bit prematurely, I must add, with more events, of course, coming up next month. Sharpe, appreciate you joining us on Newsday. Thank you.